This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama, wherever you're watching the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. Sitting here just a couple of miles away from Bryant-Denny Stadium. You're following us on BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Twitter at Joe Gaither6 for all your social media needs. And we are a proud part of the Bama Central Broadcasting Network, along with our friends Blue Collar Unplugged, Blake Byler, Matthew Gibson, and Jacob Pickle, currently occupying the cover spot on BamaCentral.com with their latest episode. So make sure you check out those guys on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon as well. We're going to have a fun day. Hopefully you're having a fun Wednesday. Happy Valentine's Day to you and yours. Treat your loved ones very, very well. Hope you have extended your well wishes, maybe some chocolate, maybe some flowers, or at least a card or a nice text message to your loved ones on this Valentine's Day. We hope you enjoyed that with them. But today we're going to talk about offensive coordinator Nick Sheridan. We're going to talk about Alabama basketball and their uniforms, the midweek, the Tuesday results, and really what is going down tonight in SEC basketball. And we'll figure out what we go from there. As always, you can jump into the comments at Joe Gaither6 on Facebook or on Twitter or on YouTube, and you can join the show. If you have a question, a comment, a query, or complaint for the show, you can jump in right there on the comments right there. So let's get right to it. Yesterday, we aired the show with our friend QB Reese, Alabama linebacker out of Ramsey High School in Birmingham, and we want to encourage you to find that on all the outlets that we just mentioned, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, yada, yada, yada. If you want to hear that interview with a 2024 prospect talking about choosing Alabama and what he's going to bring to the table, and we appreciate QB Reese for his time. But what happened yesterday was Alabama hired an offensive coordinator, or promoted an offensive coordinator. Alabama promotes Nick Sheridan from tight ends coach to offensive coordinator, and he is, the plan B, perhaps, or per se, for Ryan Grubb going from Alabama to Seattle. So Ryan Grubb takes the Seattle Seahawks job. You wish him well. You were only here 15 days, 20 days. What the hell, man? And then he goes back to Seattle and leaves a vacancy for Alabama. So who is Nick Sheridan? Nick Sheridan is the Alabama tight ends coach, or was the Alabama tight ends coach. He has been the tight ends coach for Washington for the last 2 seasons. His overlap with Kalen DeBoer is at Washington, and it really began in Indiana in 2019. He served as kind of the tight ends coach at Indiana in 2019 when Kalen DeBoer was the offensive coordinator. What's this really going to mean for Alabama football? To me, it is a bit of a hurdle for the Crimson Tide because Ryan Grubb knew the offense. Ryan Grubb knew the offense like the back of his hand, and I do think Nick Sheridan knows the offense as he's been in the system for a handful of years now. But the translation is a little bit different. The trickle-down effect is a bit different. Ryan Grubb was familiar with, I'm taking direction from Kalen DeBoer. I'm processing it in my own brain, and then I'm translating it and thus passing it along to the offensive coaches on my staff. Nick Sheridan's going to have to do that. Now, Nick Sheridan heard that translation from Ryan Grubb for the last 2 seasons, so at least he knows what it sounds like from the offensive coordinator in a successful Kalen DeBoer offense. So, okay, you've learned that a little bit, but he hasn't done it per se. You look at his stint. He's only served 1 time as an offensive coordinator, and it is at Indiana just after Kalen DeBoer leaves Indiana to go to Fresno State, and then DeBoer goes to Washington. So he's at Indiana, and they don't do so hot. His first season is the COVID year, and okay, not bad, actually. They go 6-2 in the COVID year, and you all remember how bleeping crazy that was. They end up, they beat Penn State 36. They put 36 on them. They beat Penn State in overtime. They beat Rutgers on the road. They put up 37 on them. They beat Michigan at home. They put up 38 on them. So nice offensive production. They put up 24 points on the road at Michigan State in a win. They lost to Ohio State. Okay, number 3 Ohio State, 42-35. Y'all all remember Alabama beating that Ohio State team in the 2020 national championship game. They put up 35 points on them. Just unfortunately weren't able to hold them down defensively. Then they played Maryland, 27 points against Maryland, 14 points on the road against Wisconsin in a win. They took 2 no contest. Well, really 1. They tried to play Purdue 2 weeks in a row and just couldn't make it happen with COVID. Blah. And then they lost to Ole Miss in the bowl game, 26-20. So not terrible numbers his first year. Then they go out his second year and they put up a 2-10 as an offensive staff, and they go really 6 points. 56 points, okay, against Idaho. Who cares? And then 24 points in a loss. They put up 33 points against Western Kentucky. Great, in a win. Then 0. Then 15. Then 7. Then 35 against Maryland. Okay, in a loss. 7 against Michigan. 3 against Rutgers. Oh, Rutgers gave it to you and held you to 3 points. 14 and 7. And really, your offensive coordinator, that's the only thing that you're worried about, scoring points. So Nick Sheridan, 2 seasons of up and down work as offensive coordinator with the Indiana Hoosiers, and now he is replacing Ryan Grubb. How's it going to work out? No one can say. No one can know. But you've seen Austin Mack, the quarterback who has transferred from Washington, basically say, oh, I'm not worried about it. I'm still locked in with the Crimson Tide. You've seen a lot of, support that, okay, the offense is Kalen DeBoer's. And I think the offense has been Kalen DeBoer's the entire time throughout the Ryan Grubb the Ryan Grubb relationship. But what obviously happens when you have a long-standing relationship is that, ideas get shared back and forth. And at this point, is it DeBoer's offense or is it Grubb's offense, or is it a mixture of DeBoer's offense with Grubb's kind of permutations that he's added to it? I'd say it's more of the latter there. And what you'll see is DeBoer will take the lessons and conversations that they've learned, that he's had with Ryan Grubb, and he's going to deepen his relationship with Nick Sheridan. And I think that you're going to see the offense develop just a little bit. Just with new ideas, but it's still going to be the Kalen DeBoer offense, and you're going to see, I think for DeBoer, it's important for him to have somebody in the role that he can trust, especially in this first year, that knows the system, that he can, communicate. He doesn't have to teach the language to. They know the language, and they know kind of the way the practices are run. He knows kind of the way the processes are processed out. And so at least for this first year, whether Sheridan works out as a strong play caller or whether Kalen DeBoer jumps in and calls a lot of the plays, that's kind of the way that I expect at this point with this change. I think you're going to see Nick Sheridan build a lot of the game plans, Sunday through Friday night, and you're going to see kind of a conglomerate with Nick Sheridan, Jamarcus Shepard, and Kalen DeBoer on Saturday carving up opposing defenses until, Sheridan and Shepard gain that trust, that long-term trust that Ryan Grubb had. Does it take Kalen DeBoer a little bit out of the CEO role? I think it does, just a hair. But look, he's a young coach. He's a first-year guy. There's going to be a lot on his plate. He's going to have – this is just another plate that he's going to be spinning in the air as part of his head coaching duties here at the Capstone. So I think that, look, is this the best offensive coordinator Alabama could have gotten? Probably not on paper. You might have asked about the Missouri offensive coordinator, but the relationship there, the longstanding relationship, I think gives it the edge and says, this is the best situation for the time being, especially the time being. It's February. You've already had National Signing Day. You're getting ready for spring practice. You need to keep things rolling. You've been on campus now for a couple of weeks after recruiting, so you started to work through the language. You need somebody who's already developed some of the relationships with the players, even though they're brand new. to just continue that and just promote him to an authority level figure instead of bringing in a new authority level figure. So you're going to have to replace a tight ends coach, or you leave it open. You'll make Sheridan kind of oversee both of those things. It's going to be interesting to see how spring practice goes. I cannot wait to see it. So that's really the state of Alabama's coaching staff. Jay Nunez took the Oklahoma stuff out of his Twitter bio, and so it's assumed that he is going to be coming from Oklahoma to Alabama as the special teams coordinator. And it's going to be a brand new staff and a lot of new guys to get to know. Does losing Ryan Grubb stink? We talked about it on Monday. Of course it does. The timing isn't ideal, but for Alabama, the big train keeps on rolling. The show must go on, and you make the best of kind of a less than ideal situation. All right, let's blend two topics real quick. Let's blend two topics as we continue on the Joe Gaither Show. We're talking to you on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at Joe Gaither 6 and on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. So look, we all know, we talked about it on Monday just a little bit, Alabama's new uniforms, new old retro uniforms. They're not replicas by any means. They're not throwbacks by any means, but they utilize a lot of replica and throwback and retro elements with the block crimson tide and the block A on the shorts. And so a lot of people are getting excited about this weekend's basketball game against Texas A&M because they want to see the uniforms. And I admit, I like them. I mean, they don't blow me away. And you can let me know what you think about the uniforms in the comments at Joe Gaither 6. But they don't blow me away. But I do like them, and I am excited about them just because it's a nice gimmick, and I do like gimmicks in sports. We talked about that on Monday as well. Do you like gimmicks in sports? So this has bled over into a conversation on the Alabama social media channels, different platforms and such. Should Alabama football, now that the Nick Saban has retired, embrace some sort of uniform change? You've got a lot of people throwing out the white helmets. You've got a lot of people throwing out helmets from like the 1920s with white and red stripes. You've got a lot of people throwing out a bunch of different ideas for the Crimson Tide. You all remember what in 2007? They had the crimson trimming, not the crimson. They had the houndstooth trimming on the neckline of the Alabama uniform. So like Alabama football has experimented a little bit, and I guess they've changed some of the linings on the uniform throughout the years just to kind of make it crease different ways. But overall, the uniform is what it is. Solid crimson, big block numbers, a name on the back, big block numbers on the back as well. And same thing with the helmets. It's been the solid crimson helmet. It's been the stripe, the white stripe, and then the numbers on the side as well. So like it's iconic. It is what it is. Every time you see the uniform, everybody knows it's Alabama football. Would you like to change the uniform? Do you mean one thing? I enjoy Oregon's shtick and playing in a new uniform each and every week. I don't know that it's necessary for Alabama football. You still have the luster. I think you still have a lot of the historical elements. Now, look, just because Nick Saban retired, I don't think you're losing a lot of the historical elements. Now, if you start to maybe drop off and you've got a big game coming up, I wouldn't put it past Alabama to roll out kind of a matte gray uniform or a white uniform with a white helmet. I think that it would send a lot of people give a lot of people a heart attack. And so, Greg Byrne, are you prepared to give a lot of people a heart attack by changing the Alabama football uniforms? I don't think that there is a great need for that. And I don't think there's a great push for that inside the athletic facility. You heard Nick Saban pretty much every time he was asked about any sort of uniform change, he referenced the historic element of the Alabama uniform and how the prestigious nature of the program and everything that goes along with it. And so I think Nick Saban was virtually serving as a mouthpiece for the Alabama athletic department. I don't think there's a great need or push for Alabama to wear any white helmets on any specific occasion or to change the Alabama football uniform in any way. With baseball, it's a lot of fun. You got the camo hat. They've got like 4, 5, 6 different versions of their uniform because they're playing like 50 bleeping games. 70 games. They're playing a ton of games. And then basketball, I think it's a lot of fun just because of the a little up and close nature and the different uniforms you've had over the course of the history of the program. I think it's fun to pay homage this weekend, and they're paying homage to the 2003 to the Elite Eight team, the team that made it to the Elite Eight with Mark Gottfried and Rod Grizzard. So it's going to be a lot of fun to be in Coleman Coliseum this weekend. To see the throwback uniforms. You can let me know what you think about the throwback uniforms or about Alabama football changing their uniform, potentially. The hypothetical, would you be for it, or would you be in the category, in the camp of having a heart attack if the Crimson Tide rolled out with some white helmets or did anything drastic to its uniform? You see a lot of teams debuting a black uniform look or doing something, off the wall. That would throw me for a huge loop. I think the biggest concession Alabama athletics might do, you could push them to, is the white helmet. But even then, I would split those percentages at 3%, 5%, something very, very, very small. I think that is not something that they're really in the market for quite yet. Let's keep things going on the football side of things with a little bit of news out of our rivals, our compatriots, kind of our brother. What's going on with Scott Cochran? Scott Cochran, we all know and love, former Alabama strength and conditioning coach, who has been over at the University of Georgia for the last handful of years as special teams coordinator. So Scott Cochran is now officially not on the Georgia coaching staff. And there's a little bit of conversation, a little bit of hope, a little bit of discussion. I won't say there's any smoke to it, but it's just some fan discussion about Scott Cochran returning to Tuscaloosa under the new regime. Now, I think Coach Cochran is wanting to look for different options and maybe continuing in the coaching realm as far as a position coach, and Alabama has its position coaches filled. But you bring in a guy like Scott Cochran to reset or make sure you restore or oversee this transition to Coach Kalen DeBoer. I think it would be a hell of a hire. Now, do I think it's super likely? No, I put it kind of in the category of Alabama football changing its uniforms. I think it's like a 3 to 5% chance. So very, very unlikely. But would you like to see Scott Cochran approach for some sort of role in the Alabama football department? He's officially not with the Georgia Bulldogs anymore, and we congratulate him as he did announce, a handful of months ago, that he made it to a year of sobriety, and that's really, really great for him. I know that was something he was struggling with, but he's moved on from Georgia. They've moved on to something different. Would you like to see him back in the Alabama football facility, in the Alabama football family? I know he was integral to the early part of the Nick Saban days. Could he be someone that Kalen DeBoer targets? I think it's unlikely, but it makes for a fun conversation. And if he ended up here, oh my gosh, the fan base, I think, is already very, very excited for the future with this of the Crimson Tide. But I think if you brought in Scott Cochran, look, you saw Paul Constantine just leave the strength and conditioning staff and go to the Atlanta Falcons, and we wish him well in that endeavor. He's going to work on their strength and conditioning staff as well. So you have a vacancy right there. Now, obviously, you can fill it with your own guy, Kalen DeBoer, and that's what will most likely happen. But do you reach out and say, Coach Cochran, do you come in and work with David Ballou? Do you combine the science with the with the rah? Yeah, you never know. Somebody's at least got to put it on Coach's radar to at least think about it. I think that's probably as far as it's going to go, though, for him to say, that might be an interesting thought. I don't think it really gets off the ground. We're going to say what's up to our friend Troy Williams in the comments. You can join him on Facebook or on Twitter or on YouTube at Joe Gaither6. We appreciate Troy each and every day watching the program and commenting. We chat on the Facebook machine. Hope he's having a great Valentine's Day with his family, just like you are. Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday. It's a midweek. Look, there's no Alabama basketball during this midweek, but it's still a crazy week in the SEC. Two things stand out to me on this Wednesday. First, Texas A&M is coming to Tuscaloosa. We already kind of hit on that just briefly. Texas A&M is coming to Tuscaloosa on Saturday, but the Aggies took one on the chin last night. They took one in a bad A&M, 42. They took one on the chin last night, losing to Vanderbilt, giving the Commodores their second conference win of the season. Vanderbilt now 2-9, losing to Vanderbilt on the last play of the game. Now, it wasn't like Vanderbilt stormed back. Texas A&M and Vanderbilt played a very, very close game throughout the night in over in Memorial Coliseum? In Vanderbilt. So they played back and forth throughout the night. They lost 74-73. There was a 1-point game at halftime. A&M only had a 1-point lead. So, it was not like a surprise game. Here's my thoughts on that, though. One, it shows you Alabama should be beating Texas A&M this weekend easily. I mean, you should handle it at home this weekend in Coleman Coliseum. 11 a.m. game, home game, inferior opponent, you should handle it. But you look at them game by game by game. You look at A&M game by game by game, and you think, okay, you lost this past game at Vanderbilt. You won the game prior at home against Tennessee. You were on a 3-game win streak. You beat Florida, you went on the road and beat Missouri, big whoop, and then you beat Tennessee. So you beat 2 out of 3 really good teams, and then you go on the road and you lay a stinker to worst or second worst team in the conference. Thank God for Missouri if you're a Vanderbilt fan. You go on the road and you lose to Vanderbilt, and so what does this say about the mindset of Wade Taylor? What does this say about the mindset of the Texas A&M Aggies coming into Tuscaloosa on Saturday? I think Alabama needs to be on edge. I think Alabama needs to be prepared for really a big old shot. I think that the Aggies, look, I think Nate Oates has a winning record against everybody in the SEC except for Texas A&M. Is that what I saw? But A&M is not really, somebody you want to take lightly. They're still 42 in KenPom. You look at them, their adjusted offense, they're 36th in the country in offense. They're 62nd in defense. So they're playing pretty good defense. They're not playing amazing offense. Alabama, look, if you play adequate defense on Saturday and you play your game offensively on Saturday, you should be able to take care of business and probably walk away with a double-digit win. It probably is going to be another 15 to 22-point victory for the Crimson Tide on Saturday, and you're going to want to be there and or watching it on television. But I think that there's not that it's a trap game for Alabama, no, but I think you have the entire week off. You have the whole week off. You've got the excitement about the jerseys. You're celebrating arguably one of your best teams in program history. Don't come out flat against A&M, because I think that they are going to probably hit the gas pedal as hard as they can. I think that they're probably going to be desperate for a win. Look, they're 14-6 in the league. Where did I see that? They were 6th in the league. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're 7th in the league at 6-5. So they're pretty much out of winning the league territory. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. But they're definitely still around for spoiling the league. They've got Alabama. They've got Tennessee again. They've got South Carolina. So they're going to have a say in who wins the league. And you're not going to want to be there on Saturday morning getting upset after an entire week off. What do you think about the week off? What do you think about these midweek buys? This is Alabama's midweek buys, and we've seen many other programs have them already. Florida had theirs last week, and Bruce Pearl had something to say about that. Bruce Pearl talking after the game, losing badly to the Florida Gators. Now, this was coming off a big old win against Alabama on Wednesday. They go down to Gainesville, and they get their butts kicked. Now, Bruce Pearl admittedly gives credit to Florida, but basically asked the SEC about these midweek buys. And wonders, because Florida had their midweek bye, that he said, Florida had from basically Sunday to Friday to prepare for Auburn, while Auburn had from Wednesday night they beat Alabama, then they come down, they practice on Thursday, they travel on Friday, and then they're playing on Saturday. So it's basically a one-day prep and a walkthrough. So the prep time is much, much different. He says, okay, I like the midweek buys, but if we're going to give the midweek buys, you got to travel. You should travel on the Saturday. So in the instance of last week, it would have been Auburn hosting Florida in the case of last week. Now, I like these midweek buys, and part of me, out of what happened on Saturday, thinks, oh, shut up, Bruce, yada, 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 you guys lost one in the standings. But I think he might be on to something. I mean, A&M this weekend is about to come to Tuscaloosa. I would be shocked if they went from Nashville back to Texas and come to Coleman Coliseum. I bet you they stayed right over here, a couple hours away from the. I bet you they're staying in Nashville over these next couple of days. I'd be shocked if they went back to College Station. Maybe they did, and if so, color me wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. But A&M has got a hard week. They are going from College Station to Nashville. They played the second worst team of the league on a Tuesday night and lost. And then they're going to play the best team, top 2 or 3 team in the league on Saturday on the road. Back-to-back road games. Meanwhile, Alabama has been resting through the week. Alabama, lost to Auburn, went on the road to LSU and got a big old win. And now Alabama's been resting. Alabama's been looking at these brand new uniforms. Alabama's been in the gym shooting. Alabama's been enjoying Coleman Coliseum in the evenings. We hear the guys like to go up there and shoot at night. So will the Crimson Tide blow out Texas A&M, who's on basically a 2-game road trip, in the span of a week, who probably hasn't spent the night in their own bed, in 4 days by the time they play against Alabama in Tuscaloosa? Is that something? I mean, look, will I enjoy a big old Alabama win? I'll say, yahoo! Alabama got +1 in the win column in the SEC standings, and ideally, South Carolina takes one on the chin tonight to Auburn. Auburn does Alabama a favor and breaks it wide open for Alabama again in first place. I'll be happy about that. But take a step back and be objective. Is that good for the league to basically say, if you have on a midweek bye and then finish with a home game on that Saturday, I bet you these records are pretty favorable. I'll go back and look at it. To compile, but I know that the home teams have a overwhelmingly strong record in the SEC this season, which makes going on the road that much harder. But is that something the SEC should look at? We're going to keep the midweek buys, but we're going to send you on the road on Saturdays because maybe it's a little too much of an advantage to sleep in your own bed 5 nights in a row, prepare for the same team 5 nights in a row, and then play them at home on a Saturday in front of a raucous crowd. Might be something to look at. Now, what else happens tonight? I just hit on it. South Carolina is taking on Auburn in Neville Arena. Let's flip to the SEC. You get a couple of interesting two games tonight that are interesting. At 7:30, South Carolina and Auburn. We just hit on that. Auburn is an 11.5-point favorite. Look, this is one where if you're an Alabama fan, you may not be comfortable cheering for Auburn, but if Auburn wins, that's a big deal for Alabama. You get you already have the 1-game tiebreaker over South Carolina, but you both have the same record. Meaning if Alabama loses, but somehow flubs a one up on Saturday and loses to Texas A&M, then you're going to need some help from other players. You're going to need some help from other teams. But you get the win from Auburn. You get the win from the rival this tonight against South Carolina. That's going to help you a whole lot, giving you that separation, giving you that cushion. Then you got Tennessee and Arkansas. I know a lot of people have made a lot of fun of Arkansas this year and have enjoyed watching their season kind of go off the rails, and I might be a part of that company, but Arkansas can beat Tennessee tonight at home. They're playing tonight at 8 o'clock. Yeah, at 8 o'clock on ESPN2. This is a game that Tennessee has to have. Tennessee was 7-less with 3 losses. Basically, the winner of this league is going to end with 3 or 4 losses. You're probably out of the league picture if you have 4 or more losses. Now, you might still be there as a tie. You might be there with a tie. But if you have 5 losses, you're probably out. So Tennessee doesn't really have a whole lot of room for error at this point. And while they're absolutely a better basketball team than Arkansas, and they should win tonight's game pretty easily, what are they favored by? They're favored by 8.5 points on the road. Look, they should win that game pretty easily. It's still a game that the Volunteers cannot afford to slip up. And so it makes for an interesting midweeks for Alabama basketball. You get the rest, you get the uniform change, you get a team coming off a loss to the second worst team in the league, maybe chop them down a peg, but they're going to come in desperate. They're going to come into Coleman Coliseum desperate. And so Alabama's going to have to be ready on Saturday at 11 a.m. One more piece of Alabama basketball news before we move on and wrap up the program, and you can join us at Joe Gaither 6 on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon, is with Joe Lunardi. Look, you've talked about, you've seen, Alabama's record is not necessarily the strongest in the league. Alabama, is 17-7 now. 17-7, not near as good as obviously South Carolina's 21-3 or Auburn's 19-5. But you've highlighted Alabama's difficult non-conference schedule. Joe Lunardi has the Crimson Tide now as one of the number 2 seeds. You've moved up and up and up through the non-conference schedule. You were a 6 in the middle of non-conference. Now you moved up to a 5. 2 weeks ago, Alabama was a 3. They were a 3 even after they lost to Auburn last week. And now, without even playing a game this week, Joe Lunardi, the bracketology, has moved the Crimson Tide up to a number 2 overall seed. And what does that say? I mean, goodness gracious, Nate Oates, a year removed from having the Crimson Tide as the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. And obviously it ended in a disappointing fashion in the Sweet 16 in Louisville. That drive back was terrible. But the overall season, winning the double again, the second year out of 3 for Nate Oates, winning double in the SEC championships and getting excited about watching Brandon Miller and just enjoying the basketball team. It was a lot of fun. And to see all the departures, you lost all 3 assistant coaches. You lost Brandon Miller. You lost Javon Quinterly to the transfer portal. You lost Noah Clowney to the NBA draft. You lost you lost Charles Bediako to the NBA as well. Like, you lost a lot of last year's team, and to have them over halfway in the SEC season in first place again, and with the number 2, with one of the number 2 seeds, I think it just speaks to how strong of a coach Nate Oates is. I worry about keeping him in Tuscaloosa, especially with jobs like Louisville and Michigan coming open. Do I have any inside knowledge on that? No, I do not. It's just a speculation and a worry. I hope everything that I hear is that Nate Oates is happy in Tuscaloosa. We'll see how it goes in the future. But for now, Alabama basketball has a great coach, and it's just evident year in and year out. He's got the Crimson Tide competing for a league title. No matter what happens over these last 7 games, I mean, obviously you want to win the games, but no matter what happens over these last 7 games, to have the Crimson Tide competing at this level, I mean, you're a lock for the NCAA tournament. You can drop these 7 games, and golly, that would be a horrific fall off. But you can drop these next 7 games, and then in the tournament, you'll be in the tournament anyways. Look, to have this team and this program competing at a year in, year out level, I think is something that should be appreciated from the Alabama fan base. And we'll see how they do it again on Saturday. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here for the day with just a little bit of baseball news and a little bit of softball news. Alabama baseball and Alabama softball kicking off weekends. Let's see. It'll be the first game for baseball, but for softball, let's see. Softball is going to kick off on Thursday. On Friday. On Friday. They're going to kick off on Friday at 4 o'clock over in Rhodes Stadium. They're going to kick off with the Easton Bama Bash. And then Alabama baseball is kicking off again on Friday with Manhattan. So we're getting ready to get scheduled, the Diamond season scheduled, and we'll cover everything we can. That'll also be on Friday at 4 o'clock. So Friday at 4 o'clock, you'll be able to find us at BamaCentral on BamaCentral.com for all of your Alabama Crimson Tide Diamond sports needs. We're going to be all over it, and I think the baseball team's going to be pretty good. And the softball team off to a 5-0 start, still hesitant to say what they could or could not be. You want to see Caleb Beaver, a no-hitter and nearly a second no-hitter in the first weekend. Does she have enough to be the ace of this year's softball team? And then we'll see how the pitching really goes over over at the Joe for the Alabama baseball team. Let's get out of here for the day by talking about our friends at Druid City Music Hall. Druid City Music Hall is the premier place to watch live music right here in Tuscaloosa. You want to check them out at druidcitymusichall.com. They've got a pretty good schedule of events coming up pretty soon on Tuesday, February 20th, all the way through that Friday. They've got all the way through that Friday, February 23rd. They've got concerts each night. So if you've got time available to come to Tuscaloosa, or if you're in Tuscaloosa looking for something to do next week, next Tuesday, all the way through next Friday, if you're looking for something to do for Valentine's Day, you got in on something late, maybe your girl likes live music, or maybe your guy likes live music, they've got four different acts playing next week at Druid City Music Hall. So you want to check them out at druidcitymusichall.com. You can find out about the Brook and the Bluff, Pigeons playing ping pong, 49 Winchester, and the Stews. I think that if my schedule lines up, I'm going to be at the Stews concert because I have been really enjoying them on my Spotify lately. So check them out. The Brook and the Bluff is playing on Tuesday. Pigeons playing ping pong is playing on Wednesday. 49 Winchester is playing on Thursday. And the Stews is playing on Friday. That's next week at Druid City Music Hall. Check them out at druidcitymusichall.com for all your ticket needs. And we'll hopefully see you there, right down there on the strip in Tuscaloosa. We'll get out of here for the day. We appreciate everybody watching us on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We appreciate QB Reese for joining us yesterday on the program. We will keep it rolling right here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and Spotify. We'll come back for another episode tomorrow right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.